This is Glenn May of BassResource.com. Recently, I had the opportunity to go fishing with Bassmaster Classic champion Mike Iaconelli. But before I went, I asked our forum members what questions they would like to ask Mike if they were in my shoes. Mike graciously agreed to answer any and all questions that were thrown at him, so I brought them all. The result is a seemingly random stream of questions in this video. Mike did a great job of answering them all. I learned a number of new things, and I hope you will too. Here now is my day on the water with Mike Iaconelli. So with the way the economy is going, I know BASS has cut back a little bit on their schedule. Is there anything that the pros are doing?
Yeah, I mean it's you know, it's tough times. There's no denying that it's tough for everybody. Fishing industry is no different, and you know, I think everybody's trying to supplement, or, you know, most guys I know are trying to supplement their income by doing other things, you know, by doing seminars, by guiding. There's enough things in the fishing industry that you can do that can, you know, keep you busy and keep you working. So, and then that plus just the normal things that everybody does to save money, you know, trying to cut back on costs. That's, I think that's across the board. That's everybody.
So are there any misconceptions about pro anglers?
No, you know, I'd say just the biggest general one is that we've got like secret baits and different equipment than everybody. We've got all the same stuff, you know. It's definitely the mental side is where the difference is at. It's not in the equipment, you know.
You don't have women chasing you around like rock stars
No.
or anything?
No. Very little of that. Mostly just 50-year-old men from Alabama.
You know, occasionally when I fish a tournament and I'm just decide I'm going to fish it for fun, I sometimes do better than I do, and then if I'm really hardcore about it.
Yeah.
Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about there is it's something called fishing the moment, which means a lot of times when you're fishing a tournament, you get so locked into what you did in practice or what you think's going to happen. Most of the time when you're fun fishing, you just fish the moment. You know, you're just out there fishing and you're not really worried about what happened last week or the other day. And when you can free your mind up like that, that's a good thing, you know?
You ever fish one of those tournaments where you didn't feel you were on top of your game?
Oh yeah, I mean there's events where you feel underprepared, but you know, you always got to make the best of what you've got, and you always got to believe you can win.
Do you ever win one of those tournaments?
Oh yeah, there's been tournaments where I've won or at least have done well enough to get a check and get points where you thought all was lost going into the event, you know?
Now, at this level of fishing, tournament strategy is pretty darn important.
It is important, yeah. Strategy is probably more important than anything else. You know, you want to think about the rod and the reel and the bait, but you know, your game plan and the mental side of it is the most important thing, you know? I can tell you, I've said this before and people think this is a strange statement, but I really feel like the Classic is won before the actual Classic starts. You know, the pre-practice period, the strategy, all that stuff is what wins a Classic. You know, the hard work is leading up to the actual event. Once you get to the event, you want it to be just fish catching. You want to have to take all that other stuff out of the equation. So it's a big part of it. My strategy stays the same. I do a lot of research. You know, my tournament fishing is based off a lot of research and preparation, and but you know, in the Classic, everything's a win mentality. Win, win, win. That's all you're thinking about. No points, no consistency. You're just thinking about the winning fish, and that's it.
Is your strategy overall for this season going to be any different from previous seasons?
No, the same two goals. The number one goal is Angler of the Year, and the second goal is the Classic, and they're the same, you know? Trying to win Angler of the Year and qualifying for the Classic, and then hopefully winning the Classic. They're always the two number one goals.
What is your opinion of anglers' ownership of spots during a tournament?
Well, there's You know, the thing in bass fishing is there's a lot of unwritten rules, you know, kind of gray areas. And that's one of them. There's no rule about spots, but here's the way the unwritten rule reads. First day of the tournament, everything's fair game. I mean, first day of the tournament, you know, you go out and you fish what you found in practice. But after that, you've kind of established yourself. So here, give you an example. You know, if I've come in here and I'm the only boat here the first day, I come in with 30 pounds. And then the second day, like 10 boats show up here. That's kind of unethical. So that's basically the rules that we use. And again, it's an unwritten rule. But, you know, eventually it'll come back around. If you break that rule and, you know, dishonor somebody, it'll come back around eventually and bite you.
You ever wish you could take a year off just to relax?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
What would you do?
Probably fish. Probably do a lot of different types of fishing, saltwater fishing, and be nice to just be able to stay at home with the kids for a long period of time, you know?
What's the weirdest thing you ever caught?
Oh, boy, that I can say on tape? Man, I don't know. I've caught, you know, different species of fish. I've caught shopping carts and trash cans and, man, I've caught some weird stuff. Fishing rods with fish on it.
We then moved to a new location, one of many moves we would make that day. But before we could get to the main channel, we had to cross a stump-laden flat. For those of you who have never done this before, here's a textbook example of the way to do it. To protect your boat and motor, take your time and go slow. When the boat hits a stump, it does that. No harm, no foul, simple as that. Mike, what was the defining moment when you decided to become a pro angler?
I'd say it's in 1994 when I fished, back then they were called BASS Top 150s. I fished on Lake Norman, North Carolina, and I think I was 23 years old. I was a sophomore in college, and I won the tournament, you know, and that I thought was a defining moment. You know, it definitely let me know I could compete at a higher level, and gave me my boat. You know, I won a boat. I had a John boat before that, so definitely would be that win.
So Mike, what's your scariest moment on the water?
Scariest moment on the water is, you know, there's a couple. I mean, big waves is always one. You get to Lake Erie, and the waves are giant. That's always scary. But probably the scariest moment I ever had is about 5 or 6 years ago. I was out on the West Coast fishing the California Delta, and I got ejected from the boat going about 70, and that's definitely no fun. You know, I had my vest on, which was key. You know, key. I definitely could tell you I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the vest, and escape with a concussion. You know, but hitting water at 70 feels like concrete, man.
And Mike, I know you have your own line of rods, and there's a lot of anglers out there who have their own line of rods and reels and lures and that sort of thing. How much involvement does that take from the angler to develop those?
It takes a lot. I mean, I know for me at least, let me say that. I don't know in some of the other cases, but for me, it's most of the time, any of the stuff that we're designing, that signature stuff, is at the very least, a year out. Most of the time, it's 2 years out. You know, with Dye, we're working on those rods. We started that process about 2 years ago, and it's just a process of going back and forth with blanks. You know, they'll send you something, give your feedback, they'll send you another one, and back and forth, and that goes on for a long time. And it's not just functionality. It's the look, it's the graphics, it's the type of material, foam, cork, the composition of the graphite. There's so many things that go into it, and and it takes a long time. So it's a long process, but it's worth it. I love it. That's one of the things to this sport that I love, is being able to design stuff. It's total for me, it's total hands-on, you know, and like I said, it's usually a year or two out. You know, another example is that with True Tungsten, I'm designing a flick shake head, and this is going on the 2nd year. Finally, we'll have it at ICAST this year, but you know, it takes a while to get things right, find the right hook, find the right shape, you know, the right size, all those things. It takes a lot.
Now, what about the boat graphics on your boat? Did you play a hand in that? Did you design that?
Oh yeah, I have a hand in almost everything. I work with a company that designs the graphics, and we try to put certain elements in there that relate to me and my brand, you know, and then obviously we try to sign the sponsors, so that's pretty neat too.
If they could bring back one old discontinued lure, which one would you want them to bring back?
Oh man, I'd say probably a couple of my favorites that are long gone. One is just the old Bagleys, you know. I mean, they still do make Bagleys, and they say they're like the originals, but there's something about that old wood and the old components that make those Bagleys classics. I'd say probably another one would be a bait by Bomber, made a long A. It was a jerk bait. It was a Kevin Van Dam Signature Series long A suspended jerk bait in clown color. And I tell you, I swear to you, I still have 5 or 6 left, and they catch more fish than any of the ones they make now. They still make that same bait, but again, something's changed. The plastic or the material, something's different. So it would be those two, for sure.
You know, given the amount of time you spend on the water, I'm sure you've seen your share of weird things. Have you seen any strange wildlife?
You know, the deer crossing the water, I see that all the time. That's wild. Every time I see it, I never get tired of that. But one time fishing Kerr Reservoir in Virginia, I saw a white deer, all white deer, albino deer. That was pretty cool.
So Mike, what's the one defining moment that changed your life forever?
You know, there's a couple. I'd say the first one was in 1994, I won an amateur BASS tournament in Lake Norman, top 150, and first place was a fully rigged bass boat. So that kind of gave me the opportunity to compete at a different level. Before that, I had a John boat. The second was right here, winning the Federation National here in '99. Made my first classic, first time I got some national exposure, and sponsors kind of started filtering in. And then the last one was the Classic. Winning the Classic in 2003 was absolutely a key moment for me too.
How did the Classic change your life?
It's everything. You know, I mean, it kind of gives you some security in the sport, you know, to win that title. And there's, you know, I think there's only less than 50 guys that have ever won that thing. So it really, from a business standpoint, gives you a foundation in fishing.
Hey Mike, under what, if any, conditions would you fish a deer hair jig over a rubber skirted jig?
The hair jigs, you know, it's something, growing up in the Northeast, something I have done for a long time. I really feel like hair is at its best when the water's super cold. You know, that's really when I use them. I have a box. I use deer hair, I use rabbit, I use marabou, and it really doesn't get pulled out until that water temperature gets in the mid 40s. But from the mid to high 40s to freezing water, that's when I really use it. That's when I love it.
And why is that?
Well, you know, one of the things that I try to do with baits is I try to match the bait to the metabolism of the fish, or the activity level of the fish. And in that real cold water, you know, their metabolism's real low. They're not feeding a whole lot. They don't want something with a lot of action. And if you ever look at the action of a hair jig, it has action. Don't get me wrong, but it's more subtle, you know, and neutral. And that's the mood of the fish. Now in the summer, when the fish are wired, you know, their metabolism's super high, I want a jig with rubber. You know, I want something with a lot of action. I want a big grub trailer. So I'm always trying to match the bait to the mood of the fish.
What is your least favorite technique?
Least favorite technique, I would say, is fishing extremely deep water. I'm talking about water that's 40, 50, 60 foot deep. I've learned how to do it, and I'm getting better at it, but when that jig and spoon bites on and they're catching them out of 60, 70 foot of water, I'm not very good at that.
What is your opinion on line visibility for largemouth bass?
I think, to me, line visibility relates more to the water clarity than it does to the species of the fish. You know, basically, the clearer the water, the more you got to be concerned about it. In that dirty, muddy water like what we have here, the less concern you have about line visibility. You know, for me, when line visibility is a concern, and you're talking about clear water, visibility 2-3 feet or more, then fluorocarbon's the best line use. You know, it's invisible, so.
Hey, is line diameter important when fishing finesse techniques for smallmouths?
Oh, it's important. You know, especially for pressured smallmouth. I've seen it where, you know, the difference between 8 and 6 is unbelievable, or the difference between 4 and 6 makes a difference. And like I said, especially pressured smallmouth, clear water, heavily pressured fish, the light line makes a big difference. Not even necessarily the fish seeing it, but the bait of the action of the bait. You know, especially with fluorocarbon, the lighter the line, the more action that bait has. So, you know, my general rule of thumb is I try to get away with the lightest line possible. And that really means I look at the cover. If I'm in open water, I fish 6 or 4. If I've got moderate cover, I'm usually fishing 8 or 10. And if it's real heavy cover, I'm using 12 or I'm using fire line with the fluorocarbon leader.
When you were fishing for blues in this episode of City Limits, how come you weren't using steel leader?
Because I didn't know any better, you know? Honestly, it's funny because you get caught in this bass fishing world and there's, you know, there's not a whole lot of that kind of stuff going on. And I had fished for blues before, and I knew that they had sharp teeth and you should use a leader, but I didn't even think of it, you know? I was so excited. You get there and you see them fish busting and you just want to cast, you know? So that was a boo-boo, but I'll remember that next time.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Well, I suppose X-ray vision, so I can see in the water and figure out how many thousands of fish I'm going over.
So Mike, what fishing techniques do you feel you invented or modified or maybe improved that perhaps no one else knew before?
You know, that's a pretty hard statement because I think over time there's a lot of people in different areas that all kind of figure the same thing out, you know? So I don't want to take credit for anything totally, but I tell you there's 2 techniques that I've worked on pretty hard. One is a technique called pitch skipping, which is basically it's a cross between a skipping cast and a pitch cast. And it basically lets you get, you know, jigs and stuff way back under docks with bait casting equipment. That's one. The other one is definitely a technique called ripping, which you get a medium to deep diving crankbait and you purposely throw it in the grass and really violently jerk it out. You know, I've won several tournaments doing that. And there are 2 techniques that I've worked hard on, but I'm not going to take credit for them, though.
So when you're at a tournament and you've had a bad day, how do you stay focused?
Well, you know, you got to regroup. You got to look at what you're doing and try to imagine where the fish are, you know. Like I said, that's one of the things I've struggled with over the years is, you know, to remain positive. And you got to do it though, because you never know when it's going to happen. You know, it could happen 5 minutes before you weigh in. You could catch 2 fish that win you the tournament. So you've really got to just stay focused. I know it's hard, but...
Can you share with us some of the techniques you use to stay focused?
Well, one of the things is it's just some visualization techniques, you know. Kind of, I like to sometimes, I imagine I'm the bait. You know, you throw the bait in there and you kind of imagine what the bait's doing. And in your mind, you know, you're thinking, okay, it's going over rock, it's going over wood. And so by focusing on the bait, pretending, kind of imagining you're the bait, you focus in on the technique a little more.
Now, Mike, this year BASS removed the co-anglers from the tournaments. Do you think that's a good or a bad thing?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Yeah, I've kind of got mixed emotions about it. You know, part of me thinks it's a bad thing. You know, I started as a co-angler, and I felt like that was an important stage. You know, to get into the pro level. So I don't like it for that respect. But you know, part of me, the other thing, and I think this is where they're coming from on the rule, is, you know, to be a true professional sport, you've got to eliminate any of the other factors that could play. And so it's, you know, it's not that they're trying to get rid of the co-angler just to get rid of them, but they're trying to even the playing field. And I think in a sport, to reach the top professional level, I think it needs to happen. So I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I've got real mixed emotions about that.
How do you go about breaking down a lake in 2.5 days that you have absolutely no experience on?
Man, that's a hard thing to do. I can tell you a lot of it for me is research, is stuff you can do before you ever get to the fishery. You know, I'm real big on doing research, historical research, you know, doing web searches, back issues of magazines, trying to find out some background on the fishery. That's part of it. The next thing is buying maps in advance, you know, getting a look at the lake before you ever get there. And then what you could do with that is you can guesstimate where the fish are going to be. And really what I'm talking about is seasonal pattern. You know, if you know the general seasonal pattern, what the seasonal pattern will be, you can kind of break that lake down at least in half before you ever get there. And, you know, there's some of the things I do to try to figure it out.
What do you feel is your biggest mistake as a pro angler?
Not fishing the moment. You know, I talk about it all the time, but our human nature is to go back to a spot over and over, you know? Spot we've caught them at our whole lives, or a place we caught them in practice 2 days ago. You've got to learn to fish instinctive. We were talking about fun fishing earlier. If you could learn to fun fish every time you go out, that would really help you, you know, to become a totally instinctive fisherman and fish the moment every time. It sounds easy, but it's a hard thing to do.
Now, Mike, where do you think you're going to be in 20 years?
Oh, man, that's a hard question, too. You know, I don't know. I really don't know, but I can tell you that I hope that I'm fishing, you know, whether it's tournament fishing or whether it's a TV show, you know, working somewhere in the industry. I mean, this is really what I love to do. So I hope I'm fishing.
Then we came upon a log jam that blocked the entrance into a small bay. What Mike does next is unbelievable. Yeah, he's fishing over that pile of logs. Now, at this moment, I'm thinking to myself, what happens if he catches one? I really got to see this. Come on, Mike, just catch one. Seriously, if you would have caught a 4-pounder over that long,
That'd been awesome.
you could have got him over.
I would have just kept whining as hard as I could. Whine, 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 whine.
You're probably wondering by now if Mike caught any fish. It was a slow day fishing, no doubt, but he did manage to catch a few. But it seemed as though he would do it only when I happened to have the camera turned off. So I only have a few catches on tape, and those are just as he gets them into the boat. But here are the best two.
That's the kind I was looking for. I wanted one bite here, that's all I wanted. That's a good fish right there. About 3-pounder. That's a good one. Look at him. Think you wanted that thing? It's a good fish. Nice fat fish. Right there, right on that channel edge. I already got a waypoint there. I'm gonna put another one there. He come off too. He come off a little bit. Not right on that stem edge, but out on kind of these harder sticks. That's good. It's a good bite. That's the kind right there. That's the kind that's gonna win the classic right there, man. Yeah. All right. Look how shallow that fish was. Right up on this laydown, horizontal laydown. Unbelievable. Unbelievable how shallow that fish was. Gotta be wood though. Second one that came off wood. Fished through all them pads, and it's never got a bite. Get to a piece of wood, and poof, got a fish. How about that? How about that? How about that? Now I just need to find about 10 more logs like that.